a new article and thread from Brian Cates. So let's get started because it's going to be a doozy. Title of the article from uncoverdc.com: Who was the real source of Steele's fake dossier? Spoiler alert, it's this dude in the photo. But getting ahead of myself, here we go. Christopher Steele has now been at the center of the Spygate scandal for 3.5 years. Throughout, there has been rampant speculation about where Steele got the information for various allegations in his infamous dossier against President Donald Trump and associates such as Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Carter Page, Michael Cohen, and Paul Manafort, among many others. Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz released a highly anticipated report last December that detailed how FBI officials grossly abused the FISA surveillance court to obtain a warrant allowing them to legally spy on former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page and, by extension, the entire Trump campaign. For years, the mainstream media used anonymous sources to claim little, if any, of the Steele dossier was used for the Page warrant. The Inspector General's FISA abuse report definitively proved that not only was the Steele dossier used to convince the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISC, to grant the warrant, it also dropped a bombshell about the person Steele claimed as the main source for most of his Trump-Russia collusion information. That key person is referred to as the primary subsource, PSS, in the Horowitz report and many newly declassified documents. Steele described this PSS to the FBI. He painted the PSS as a very highly placed asset with connections close to Putin and Russian intelligence officials. Describing his PSS to the FBI in this way made it somewhat plausible that the dossier allegations Steele was giving to the agency were coming from top sources in Moscow. But now it appears this is in doubt. Ever since the Steele dossier was published in full by BuzzFeed News in January 2017, there has been intense speculation as to who Steele's sources were for the Trump-Russia collusion allegations found within it. Because of documents declassified just a few days ago, Spygate researchers at long last were able to nail down who Steele's elusive PSS was. And it wasn't some highly placed person with an extensive network of Kremlin sources. It turns out the PSS Steele identified to the FBI is a man named Igor Danchenko, a longtime research assistant at the Brookings Institution, a DC think tank where Ukraine impeachment witness Fiona Hill is a prominent figure. From what I've been able to find, Danchenko does not appear to have been in Russia all that much since he came to the United States to become a facilitator for the Open World program from 1999 to 2005. From 2006 to 2009, Danchenko earned a Master of Arts degree from Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service, where he also began working at Brookings as a research expert on Russian subjects. Since 2009, he appears to have rattled around Washington, D.C., being available Russian analyst for hire with various energy firms and think tanks. His quotes appear in many different political and energy-related publications where he provides analysis from a Russian expert supposedly familiar with Moscow's recent policies and Putin's current state of mind. That seems strange, making a living being a Russian expert at DC think tanks and energy firms when, for all appearances, Danchenko hasn't spent any real time in Russia since 1999, a period of over 20 years. Danchenko's disavowal raises big questions. It is not accurate to say Igor Danchenko was Steele's source for the false Carter Page allegations, which ended up in the FISA surveillance warrant, because when the FBI finally got around to asking Danchenko about this, He strongly disavowed having given Steele any of the warrant information. If Danchenko had been telling the truth, this would mean one of two things. Steele either made up the information himself or he got it from someone else, and he took steps to protect that person's identity from even the FBI. If Steele lied to federal agents about where he got much of the Trump Russia allegations that appear in his fake dossier, the question that naturally arises is what else did he lie to them about? The timeline is important. Let's remember the chain of events that happened as revealed by DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz's FISA abuse report from last December. FBI confidential human source, CHS, Stefan Halper, spent several months setting up meetings with Trump campaign personnel such as Carter Page and George Papadopoulos to surreptitiously record them making incriminating statements. Begun in spring of 2016, these recorded conversations continued into the fall. As late September turned into early October, the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane team realized time was running out. Since it was becoming increasingly apparent the secret recordings by Halper weren't going to give them what they needed for the surveillance they wanted on the Trump campaign, they were forced to go back to Steele and make use of his dossier. In a rush to get the FISA warrant approved ahead of the fast approaching election, no steps were taken to verify the allegations taken from Steele that went into the warrant. Only when the warrant was up for its first renewal in January of 2017 were FBI agents dispatched to interview Steele's PSS, who strongly disavowed having given Steele the allegations that appear in the FISA warrant. Despite knowing the PSS has disavowed being the source for any of this, the FBI renewed the tainted warrant anyway, and then twice more in April and June. It was declassified this past May that Steele had revealed to State Department official Kathleen Kavalek that the two primary Russian sources for his dossier's Trump Russia allegations were a former high ranking KGB officer, Vyacheslav Trubnikov, as well as a former Kremlin government official and close Putin advisor named Vladislav Surkov. When this State Department document was made public last May, I instantly recognized Trubnikov's name. Trubnikov has direct ties to someone right in the middle of the Spygate scandal. Former CIA operative and recent FBI informant, Professor Stefan Halper. As former Cambridge University Russia research fellow Svetlana Lokova discusses in her new book, Spygate Exposed, Halper invited Trubnikov to Cambridge to give several speeches at intelligence seminars. Was Steele's real source for much of his dossier actually Trubnikov and Surkov? If this turns out to be the case, it will mean Steele deliberately lied to federal agents, which would not be inconsequential, since the false information he gave the FBI ended up being used to obtain a warrant to spy on multiple American citizens. And thanks to the Crossfire Hurricane team and the Mueller special counsel going after General Flynn for supposedly making false statements to FBI agents, we know what a serious crime it is to lie to federal officials, right? That FISA warrant being based on fake information is such a serious matter that Inspector General Horowitz investigated it for more than a year and a half before releasing his report. Then, U.S. Attorney John Durham was tapped to investigate and is reported to be in the closing stages of his own year-and-a-half-long criminal probe. Wherever Steele got his fake Trump-Russia collusion allegations from, it's clear that he's likely in an increasing amount of legal trouble. onto the thread. What a lot of people don't seem to realize is that using Steele's dossier to get a surveillance warrant of the Trump campaign via Carter Page was actually Plan B. Plan A was CIA operative, FBI informant Stefan Halper making surreptitious recordings of Page and Papadopoulos. Only when Halper's months of trying to get Page and Papadopoulos to say something incriminating on tape hadn't worked and time was running out to get the warrant before the election, did the Crossfire Hurricane team of the FBI make the decision to fall back on Christopher Steele's dossier. This is because the entire FBI 7th floor and the Crossfire Hurricane team knew Steele's info was fake and that he was a paid operative of the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. Halper thought he could BS Page and Papadopoulos into saying something that could be used. He was wrong. Falling back on making use of Steele's dossier was far more incriminating for those involved in this fake setup of the Trump campaign, which is exactly why it wasn't the first choice. But desperate times, desperate measures. Besides, Hillary had it in the bag. They were setting up a basic insurance policy framework to be able to quickly launch Trump officials are actually Russian agents investigations in the unlikely event Trump won the election. Then Trump did win the election. They were forced to launch. The strategy was to have this Russian hoax all ready to go when Trump came into office and to begin picking off his top personnel one by creating the appearance they were Russian agents and forcing resignations and recusals. Initially, they were led to believe that it was working. They had dreams of forcing Trump from office early on, either via resignation or impeachments. Their view of Trump was that he was a very, very unstable person who would buckle under pressure. Flynn resigned, Sessions recused. It was working. They have him now. Here we are, 3.5 years later, after they used their BS Russia investigations to force Flynn's firing, Sessions' recusal, the appointment of the exact special counsel they wanted, and they're all wondering how this all went so very, very wrong for them. With everything that's dropped in the past 100 days since April, you bet a whole lot more is going to drop in the next 100 days leading up to the election. Democrats have tricks up their sleeves, you say? So does Trump. Keep watching.